In this video, we continue our discussion on the balance of payments, and in the last video, we ended with the statement that the balance of payments will always balance, in that if there's a current account deficit, then there will be a surplus in the capital and the financial account, and if there's a current account surplus, then there will be a deficit in the capital account and the financial account, therefore leading to the overall balance of payments always being or summing to zero. Now, if that is the case, then why do we sometimes hear that there are serious concerns when there are unfavorable balance of payments, or more specifically unfavorable current account balances, or too many current account surpluses? What is the issue with having a current account deficit or a current account surplus? And that is what we're going to look at in this final video that focuses strictly on the balance of payments. Now, as we stated before, a current account deficit occurs when a country spends more money abroad, that is, they import more goods, right? So the value of the imports exceed the money that is earned via exports. Therefore, the impacts of such a deficit in the current account can be one, well, we say impact, and impact doesn't necessarily be negative. As we said, a current account deficit is not necessarily negative, so there'll be both positive and negative implications. Now, if it is you're bringing in a whole host of, let's say, goods, physical goods, medicine, clothing, food, this increase in the quantity and the quality of goods available to consumers in your local economy may lead to a higher standard of living, and that's what we see here. Remember, you're importing from abroad. There's a possibility that the goods that you are importing from abroad are not locally produced in your home country. This means that if you're now accessing goods that were not previously available, this can lead to a higher standard of living. And this is a benefit. This is not a negative fact of importing. Also, by importing, it may ease inflationary pressures if they exist, because there are times when the goods may be produced locally, but the local companies don't have the type of economies of scale as foreign companies, and therefore, when they produce the product, it's actually going to be at a higher cost. And therefore, when you import the product from abroad, it's at a lower cost, and this again offers some measure of competition in the market for the said commodity, which may help ease any rising in the general price level in your country, especially from the perspective of food, because we know rising in food prices generally lead to inflationary spirals coming into existence within an economy. So, having a balance of payments, having a current account deficit may be as a result of a country seeking to decrease and keep the inflationary pressures low, right? And therefore, these are positive reasons why it may be necessary to import a lot of physical goods and services. All right. Now, what is the negative aspect of a balance of a current account balance being deficit? Well, if we are saying that you are spending more abroad than you are exporting, it means the revenue you get from exporting your commodities will not be sufficient to, let's say, cover the expenditure that takes place abroad via imports. It may mean that the locals of your country who are importing may have to actually now borrow, because they may not, the firms who are exporting could also be importing. And if your export revenue is less than your import expenditure, you may have to now borrow to finance your activities that will be captured in your current account. So a current account deficit could signal the possibility of a country increasing their debt levels in order to maintain a current account deficit. So this is a negative aspect of having a current account deficit. It could signal the fact, the investigation would be required, but it could signal the fact that there's a possibility that this country is increasing their debt levels, trying to finance this debt, or they may actually be reducing whatever reserves that they may have in order to make up the shortfall that would have taken place due to the lack of resources gained under exports. Now, what about a current account surplus? That should be good, or is it truly good? Excuse me. So, regarding a current account surplus, this occurs when a country earns more income via exports than they spend in terms of imports. As such, the impacts of a surplus in the current account, again, can either be negative or positive. A positive aspect is that an increase in the income in the hands of the domestic residents that would have occurred via the income received from exports could lead to increased domestic spending by the consumers and increased investment and expansion by firms. Now, let's look at the expansion by firms. If firms expand, this may lead to an increase in GDP as output of these firms expand and get higher. So any increase in GDP, we can say, or more specifically, any increase in real GDP could be seen or will be translated as economic growth. More so, when businesses expand their activities and their production levels, it may increase their demand for workers. Well, of course, if the demand for workers increase and this is met by a supply of the very same workers, this means that the level of unemployment within the country would diminish. So we realize that when there's a current account surplus, it may actually result in a lower level of unemployment as firms actually increase their production levels to satisfy both the domestic market for their products and also the foreign market for their products. Now, what is our negative impact of a current account surplus? Well, the fact is we have a lot of money now being pumped into the economy via the exports, because this money that firms are gaining are no longer from domestic consumption, but it's domestic consumption plus foreign consumption. So you're getting income from your local currency, and then you're getting income from your foreign counterparts. And when that foreign exchange is converted into your domestic currency, it may lead to an increase in the money supply. Incomes in the hands of individuals within the economy will increase. People begin to spend more. If that spending is not controlled, it can lead to inflationary pressures within the local economy, because people may be having more money and your country may not be able, the firms in that country may not be able to satisfy the increase in the domestic demand while having to also supply foreign customers. And as a result, if the increase in demand, in local demand, is not met by an increase in the local supply of goods, this may result in inflationary pressures being realized and inflation would occur. So here we have seen the pros and the cons of current account deficits and current account surpluses. And of course, therefore, whichever one realizes, whichever one takes place, it will therefore suggest that it may not necessarily be negative, but it could be a positive. But even though the positive aspects may occur, one must still pay attention to the negative implications of either the current account surplus or the current account deficit. So here we have it. This ends our explanation or discussion on the balance of payments, and in a future video I'm going to begin discussing the whole issue of foreign exchange, what exactly is foreign exchange, and the how it interacts and how it operates in the free market. Because when we begin discussing international trade and the balance of payments, we are now entering the discussion of what in fact is foreign exchange. So stay tuned for more videos, and I hope that this particular video was clear. Have a good day. Thank you.